Well, good day and welcome again to you. It's April the 5th. This is my third and final video of today. So if you've listened to the other videos, I really do thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to check those out. Now, if you haven't, I always like to point this out. If you want to know more about this information, understand it better, definitely check out the background links in the description portion of these videos. All right, now I got that out of the way. That's the shameless plug of the day. All right, so lastly, a person named Von Saul asked a couple questions. What do you know about the process of becoming a Mahatma or ascended being? Does it happen different for everyone, or is there only one way of it happening? That's the first question. And what's the second question? Actually, let me flip it to it. Also, what happens? Does the physical body die or what? All right, so what do I know about it? About as much as you. I only know what I've read, okay, which, you know, the whole process of becoming a Mahatma or a master or whatever, I mean, these are just words, but it's a part of life, really. Now, I do know that it's different for everyone, and there's not just one way of going about it, you know. Maitreya says the self can be realized in any moral framework or any kind of belief, but it is beyond belief. So you can be a Christian and still, or a Muslim or a fundamentalist, whatever, and learn the process of self-realization. But I think in the process of becoming self-realized, you'll stop being fundamental about your views. But, you know, it's, you know, what I would suggest, okay, because like I said, I'm in the same process as you, Vaughn, so it's not like I've already done it and I can tell you about it. Eventually, when you see these masters out and about, whether it's the Master Kuthumi or the Master Mora or Maitreya himself or the Master Jesus or any one of these other masters, if you have the opportunity, you could ask them. I'm sure they will start to teach humanity the path that we're all on. I'm sure, make it known that we are on a path towards something. What are we on our way toward? Manifesting the divinity which is within all of us. You know, in the last question from Rachel, you know, we were talking about the principle of sharing. She said that humanity is not inherently good, does not inherently want to share, or to something to that effect. Well, Maitreya would say that's not true. Within the hearts of all of us, without exception, is the same divinity which is within him. You know, so Maitreya doesn't exalt himself. That's the other thing that people say, is that they view him as the abomination of all that's good. He's the Antichrist or the son of perdition, whatever their names are that they use for those things. One of the beasts referenced in the Bible. That he will exalt himself above God and all that kind of stuff. Maitreya won't exalt himself above God, and he won't even exalt himself above the lowest members and most uneducated members and the poorest members of humanity. We all do that now. We're all guilty of thinking that we're better than somebody else, or just as bad, thinking somebody else is better than us. And so Maitreya will tell you that you're no better than other people, but they're not better than you. We're all sharing the same divinity, and the masters aren't better than us. It's just they can manifest it perfectly, that divinity which is within us. We're manifesting it anywhere from hardly ever to never, or very little, to more and more and more and more and more. It just depends on where we are on the evolutionary chain of things. And as we start to manifest it more and more, it's a gradual process, but as we start to manifest it more and more, we start to see that divinity becoming more and more evident in what we do, and what we say, and how we live. Now, the beauty of the teacher and the masters coming back into the world to teach humanity directly is you will be able to ask them. You know, I'll be able to ask them. Other people will be able to look at them, and even look at them and just, even if you don't ask them a question, you can look at them and the way that they interact, and it will make more sense to you how to live as a divine soul versus just reading it in the Bible. I mean, Jesus was manifesting his soul perfectly, you know, in the Bible, or nearly perfectly, because he was almost a master at that point. Now he's one of the masters, but they're just words on a page. You know what I'm saying? It makes more sense when you can actually see the Master Jesus loving the way that he did, or greater than he did, 2,000 years ago. or experiencing Maitreya's love, because he is the Lord of love. He is the Christ, the embodiment of love. He not only manifests that love, his body literally embodies it. It's an unbelievably rare thing that any one of these masters could do, to become a Christ, not an only true Son of God the way that the Christians view Jesus to be, but the true esoteric view of what a Christ really is, which is not just simply manifesting their divinity like all these masters, but literally embodying it. Now, the process, the path, is different for everybody, but the path is remarkably the same. And it was actually written in the Bible very symbolically, but there were events in Jesus' life that mark certain signposts, if you will, upon that path. They're called the initiations or expansions of consciousness, where the soul actually starts to take control of its lower vehicle in a greater and greater way, till eventually they have perfect mastery over their lower vehicle the way that these masters do. It starts with the first initiation, which was represented in the Bible as the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem. That did happen, but it was written in a way that to symbolize that first initiation that we will eventually all take in order to become a master. And then it takes a multiple number of lifetimes, just to, anywhere from 2 to I think 20 was the most, to the second initiation, which was written into the Bible in that way to symbolize the second initiation was the baptism. And then the third, the transfiguration. The fourth, of course, was the crucifixion. And the fifth, the resurrection. And when someone takes those 5 initiations, they become a master. Now, I don't know. I couldn't sit here and rattle off what you need to do to get to those, through those initiations of expansion. Eventually, we'll all learn more and more about the initiation process as time goes on over the next few thousand years, and start to take these initiations and so forth. But you can read the Master DK or Djwhal Khul, what he said about it in the Alice Bailey books, or you can read about it from Benjamin Creme. Okay, so that's the long answer. The simple answer, Maitreya says he comes to teach the art of self-realization, which is really what becoming a master is. You become self-realized. You no longer identify with what we all identify with, which is the wrong thing to identify with, the personality, our ideals, our thoughts, our emotions, our physical body. We all identify with that as us, but that's not who and what we are. We are the self. We are beyond that. The self is what allows all this to exist. So God isn't a person sitting on a cloud with a long beard. God, according to the masters, is what allows all this creation to exist. But that we share that with everything, whether it's an animal, a plant, a solar system, a cosmos, one of the, it doesn't matter. Everything in cosmos that we can see and relate to is a part of that. But we view ourselves as separate from that when we're not. We're all one. Now, Maitreya says the only way, or the simplest way to realize this self, he says honesty of mind, sincerity of spirit, and detachment are the 3 things. Those are his teachings. Core to his and central to his teachings are those 3 things. It's a process. You can't just read it and go, oh, okay, I got it. What I'm saying? You're going to have to do it every single day, moment to moment, every single day. As Krishnamurti say, have to be very aware, of your thoughts, of your emotions, of your intentions, in order for it to work. But Maitreya says we all think one thing, say something else, and do something entirely different. We need all 3 of those things to line up. Now, when that happens, that really is freedom. I mean, self-realization is true freedom. You no longer follow somebody else just for following them. You might look at what they say and say, yeah, it makes sense to me. And that's different than just blindly following people. Maitreya says, don't follow him. Just, but look at what he says, look at his suggestions, hopefully take his suggestions as important and something to do, but you don't have to follow him or worship him. He doesn't want that. Because we all share that same divinity. And when you worship somebody else or you follow somebody else, you lose your own sense of self. But honesty of mind, we need to, it's very easy to see in other people where they're thinking one thing, they say something different, do something entirely different. They have no integrity on it, right? Whether it's a celebrity or somebody in our own life, but we're all guilty of it. We need to have it all line up. And a good example of somebody, I think, before we start to see these masters out for who they are, would be Krishnamurti. And he's passed away, unfortunately, but you can watch videos of him and how he was interviewed, how he taught the people is very much in line with the teachings of Maitreya, which is the honesty of mind. He had a sense of integrity within his own teachings that he wasn't being hypocritical like so many teachers are, So you just have to, if you're not familiar with Krishnamurti, he would be somebody to really look at and kind of watch, and might be able to learn it a little bit. And then the second thing would be sincerity of spirit. Maitreya says it's like sitting on a beach or something like that, and you lose all sense of your worry or regret or whatever, and you're just there in the moment. Now, thankfully, you don't have to fly to a beach to see this. You can see it and experience it within your own life. He said you also have that same experience when you're having a heart-to-heart conversation with a friend or a confidant or a family member where you lose all track of time and you're just kind of there in the conversation is the same thing. You can also experience it when you're serving or teaching or being creative, like an artist or a musician or a sculptor or something, and you lose all sense of worry or being anxious about the next day, and you're just in the moment. That is a sincerity of spirit. And then lastly is detachment. We all identify with the wrong thing. We all think that we are this. So when somebody says, I am such and such, and believes it, they're identifying with the wrong thing. So even if they say, I am from France, and I'm French, or I'm an American, and America comes first, those are all wrong identifications. Anytime somebody says that, they're identifying with the wrong thing. Or even I am a Republican, or I'm a Christian, or I'm a Democrat, or I'm an atheist, or whatever their ideal of themselves is, we identify with the wrong thing. We have to see that we're not that. Just the fact that we can see ourselves as that proves that we are not that which we're wrongly identifying with. Now, if you went to a psychoanalyst because you're depressed, they would say, why are you depressed? That's the question you need to ask. Why? And it's not a bad question, but it's not as disruptive as the question of who. Who is depressed, or who is angry, or who is feeling guilty, or whatever. And so Maitreya would say it would be better to ask yourself who is feeling anger, who is feeling being afraid, who is depressed. That question, and when you really look at it and you're diligent and you're aware and you're brave enough to be objective and look at it, you can distance yourself from your fear. You don't suppress it, you don't engage it, but you distance yourself, and then it will start to lose energy. So the process of becoming a Mahatma or a master and so forth, I would say the best is to look at Maitreya's teachings. Honesty of mind, sincerity of spirit, and detachment. And these are just words until you put them into practice and you start to look at it and and try it and fail, try it and fail, try it and fail, and yet keep getting up moment to moment and trying to do it, and those kind of things. And you'll think you'll got it, and every time you think you have it, you don't. Because just the fact that you think you got it and you understand it already shows that you are past that. So those would be my suggestions, if I could make any suggestions from somebody who has not become a master themselves yet. Like I said, the good news is and the gift that these masters will be giving humanity in the not so distant future is we will be able to see what it is like to truly be divine. Have them as examples, not to follow them, not to worship them, not to make them out to be better than us or even God or whatever like that, but to look at them and see that that's who we really are. We're just like them. Perhaps living not how we should. And then the other thing that Maitreya will be teaching humanity along with that is how to live within the laws that govern that, like the law of cause and effect, the law of harmlessness, the law of free will, and so forth. how to truly live within that law and live harmlessly within that law. So it doesn't, and when we start to see ourselves not separate as we once thought we were, we start to see that when we harm someone else, we're actually harming us. There's no difference between us. That's the reason why we live in the world that we live in, is everyone thinks they're separate, when we're really not. If you harm someone else, it comes back to you in the exact same harm, in equal and opposite proportion. And if you kept doing that, if you saw it instantly, you'd stop. But the problem is that it doesn't come back quite as fast as you might think that it comes back. It might come back years or lifetimes later, but it does come back to you. Just as if you do good or something creative or loving, it comes back to you in the same way. So hopefully that helps and makes sense, and hopefully it, will inspire you to look at some of the teachings of, let's say, Krishnamurti or Maitreya, which are really the same. And if you read the Bible and you start to look at the teachings of Jesus, what you sow shall you reap, he was talking about the same thing. Even when he said, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. People imagine themselves going to the kingdom of heaven or hell or whatever when they die. Those are all right there. Even the kingdom of hell, so to speak, is right there at hand. It's your life. You know what I'm saying? It's who and what and how you see life and the life that you've created for yourself, which is the same thing, looking at it in terms of the self-realization aspect of it. We create that for ourselves in the moment. It's not just words, but when we just read it, it's just words. Does that make sense? So hopefully you understand. But anyway, thank you so much for that, Vaughn, and I really appreciate your questions. You guys take care. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos. Thank you.